We talked about Dan Le Batard giving his vote to Deadspin, and I didn't know if this would change the Hall of Fame voting process. What have you writers talked about since the Le Batard announcement?
Well, even before this announcement, we had put together a committee, and I'm actually on this committee, to study the voting procedures to see what needs to change. And specifically, do we need to add more than 10 names on the ballot? Right now, as a writer, you can vote for nobody, you can vote for up to 10, but you can't vote for more than 10. And some people are saying, listen, I'd like to vote for more than 10 people on the ballot, but I can't, so I'm leaving off guys I think are Hall of Famers. So we need to look at that. That was in place before the Le Batard situation there. So what comes of it, I don't know, but I do know this, Dan. It's really hard to get 75%. I mean, when he turned over his ballot to Deadspin, the voters, and all they were voting was yes and no on Hall of Famers. They didn't have a limit of who they could say yes to. Bonds and Clemens didn't get 75% there. They didn't get 75% in all kinds of different chapters of SABR, the sabermetric communities. They didn't get 75% in something called the Baseball Bloggers Network or the Internet Baseball Writers Network. In other words, it's not just the electorate of the baseball writers that can't vote 75% on these guys, and that's to be expected. You know, steroids are a very sloppy era. And to think that these guys are just going to waltz in and get 75% of any vote on first or second blush, that's just naive.
You got to get rid of a lot of these voters who aren't in baseball anymore, in my opinion. And I think narrowing it down and maybe a little closer to Pro Football Hall of Fame where you guys get in a room and you do discuss this, and then you don't have somebody who's going to say, hey, what about JT Snow for the Hall of Fame? You're going to actually argue, discuss. I'd love for it to be televised. Make it simple, make it transparent where you got 45 people in there. And you just say, okay, here's Craig Biggio. All right, let's argue this. And then you'll move on. And then you have a big announcement, a big reveal of, those who made it. What do you think?
It's not a bad idea, Dan, because that's essentially what they do at the Expansion Era Committee with 16 people in the room, former players, managers, executives, and media people. And it is like a jury room where you just hash it out. And I think you're more apt to get people in that way. But those votes are not revealed. And you can't, please don't offer the NFL Hall of Fame as an example to follow. There's no transparency at all. There's a fixed number of how many people go in the Hall of Fame. You have advocates up there, writers or somebody who covered the guy who's basically, his job is to sell the electorate or whoever is in that room on voting for that guy. There's no transparency in that vote at all. Baseball writers, we get slammed because we have so much transparency. You know who Ken Gurnick is. You know who's voting these outlier ballots. And we focus on these outlier ballots when the process really does work. I mean, I don't know that anybody's been voted into the Hall of Fame who doesn't deserve to be in there as far as the baseball writers go. The problem to me, I agree with you about maybe we should relook at some of these people who are voting. I think that's always good. You know, if you haven't covered baseball in a long time, you're out there covering golf, you haven't seen a baseball game in 20, 25 years, maybe you shouldn't be voting. I have no problem with taking a look at that. But the process really does work, and it works way better than the NFL process.